Hey everybody, welcome to Bura Tech. In this episode, we're going to be talking about what programmers should be doing in their spare time. Alright, welcome back. Before we start this video, I want to make sure that you like and subscribe. The more subscribers we get, the more money we can make. And the more money we can make, the more amazing content we can make. Remember that this channel doesn't do a Patreon, instead we sell our digital products down below. The more money we get from the digital products that you buy below, the more content we can make. More on that later. So let's talk a little bit about what programmers should be doing in their spare time. If you've been a fan of this channel and if you've been following me for years, I always say that you should always have some free time available and you shouldn't work all the time. If you work too much, your productivity can actually go down. And I have been a victim of this many times in my life. Many times in my life, I have worked way too hard and not taken enough time off. In fact, most of the time in my life, I am working 24/7, 7 days a week. There's always more to do, there's always more to research, and there's always more to think about with the next project. Now, I'm constantly thinking about the next project, and if I'm not thinking about the next project, I don't know what to do with myself. In fact, sometimes I go and play video games, and I really don't like it because I'm not working. In fact, I'm a big fan of this phrase, when you're not releasing, somebody else is. And if that doesn't scare you, it should. So what should you do in your time off? Over the years, I have been burnt out many times, and this is something that I don't want to happen to you because it is not good to get burnt out. If you think about it, you should be the most productive in a week as possible. So how do you do that? Well, you should work really hard and focus, but the thing that's always missing from the conversation is what to do in your time off. Now, personally, I like to do a lot of things in my time off, and over the years, I've fine-tuned a very comprehensive list on how you can make your time off to be effective to raise your productivity level. The first thing I would recommend is to not work so much. You need to take time off. This can be on a daily basis. This can be on even an hourly basis. It's better to get 30 minutes of really focused work done than 8 hours of non-focused work. So if you're going to take some time off, I would maybe take off 10 minutes for every hour. Do something a little bit different. Do not go into social media, but instead just do something a little different. This can be doing some push-ups, more on exercising later, but it can be push-ups, it can be reading something, it can be anything that's not your work. In fact, if you really try to measure how much time you're being effective and how much time you're focusing, if you can really get that time down and your spare time down, it will be very beneficial for you. So I think the best thing to do in your spare time is to exercise. I personally like going on long bike rides. It not only clears my mind, but I'm also getting a workout as a result. Lately, I've been taking my kid on the bike as well, and this is great because it burns more calories and I get to spend time with my kid. My kid loves going on bike rides with me. So the best thing you can do is solve multiple problems at the same time. So by going on long bike rides, I can A, get some exercise, B, spend time with my kids, and C, clear my mind so that next time I go into work, I'm fully recharged. So like I said, exercising is really good. Now, I am not a jogger and a lot of people do run. And if you like jogging, I highly recommend doing it. The one thing I do highly recommend is that you always stretch and make sure that you're on top of future injuries. As you get older, it's going to be harder and harder to do the same amount of physical activity you did when you were younger. You have to warm up a bit more, you have to stretch more, and you have to do maintenance exercises. I have been injured so many times in my life that this is something I don't want to have happen to you. So if you're used to running a lot, then if you get injured, you have to fill up your running time with something else. And chances are that something else isn't going to be good exercise. In fact, it's going to be something like maybe playing video games or something like that, which is not something you want to do. In fact, if you are used to running and then you get injured, you have to fill up that time. And that time might not be well spent. So please do your maintenance exercises and stretch before you run. Another thing I like to do is play Ultimate Frisbee. I love Ultimate Frisbee. It's a very nerdy sport, and I have networked so hard through Ultimate Frisbee because a lot of other coders play it as well. Ultimate Frisbee is a great sport, not only because I personally am a sprinter, not a long distance runner, but I love it because you get to talk to people. If you're sitting in front of a computer all day, going to play team sports is really good. Now, it doesn't have to be Ultimate Frisbee. It can be something like basketball or baseball or team handball or football. It doesn't really matter what the team sport is. So if you like team sports, it's really good for you to play team sports because you get to socialize with other people and and that's really good because chances are as a programmer you do not do enough socialization and you might be able to network in your city. Another thing I like to do is go skiing. I love going skiing. Now this is not for everyone. You might be living in a place where there's absolutely no snow, but I think skiing is really good because not only do you get to go out there on a beautiful mountain and burn some calories, it is really good exercise. Now there's a common theme to all of the exercises that I have given you. You always want to try and solve two problems at the same time. Like, for example, the bike ride that I mentioned earlier. The other thing you want to do is find a way to burn the most amount of calories with the least amount of perceived work. So playing ultimate frisbee is way better than hopping on a treadmill. Going skiing is really good because all you have to do is go down a hill, and not only are you toning a bunch of muscles, you're burning tons of calories. Skiing is very calorie intensive. So if you can find a fun way to burn calories, this is the best thing you can do in your spare time. So at one point in time, I was fairly unfit and fairly unhealthy, and I didn't really like that. So what did I do? I had to go and literally work to get back to my fitness level I had in my past. Now this can happen to anyone. In fact, it's very easy to fall off this train, this fitness train that is. So you need to figure out a way to go to the gym, get running, bring up your heart rate, and it's really hard to do that if you're unfit. Just remember that if you want to do this, it's small steps. If you want to go maybe walking for 10 minutes, then that walking might become 20 minutes. If you go for a bike ride, maybe go for a 20-minute bike ride, then try going for a 40-minute bike ride. If you want to play sports, maybe try to go play some sports at a lower league, like a lower beer league, and then move your way up. This is something that's really good. So if you're not as fit as you would like to be, it just takes small steps to get to where you're going, and you can use that as a metaphor to get better at programming or whatever it is you want to do. Now, another thing you can do to take time off is to travel, and this is something that I absolutely love to do. In fact, if you live in Europe, it's very easy to hop to really interesting locations that are not very far away. If you live in other areas, it might be harder, but what I would recommend you do is travel. This can be going camping, it can be going to stay at an Airbnb, maybe 2 hours outside the city that you live in. It can be something, as long as you're not in the city. In fact, this is something I really like to do. One of the things I love to do when I'm traveling is to take the train. And this is great if you're in Europe, not so great if you're in North America. But one of the things I do on the train is I read books. And sometimes the books I read are completely non-fiction books about a topic that I'm interested in. Sometimes it's a really good fiction book, and other times it's a programming book. I always am trying to read something, and I love listening to audiobooks as well. Nothing is better for me to just curl up with a nice audiobook. And if you're on a train, you don't have to focus on driving. And this is really good. And I really like the idea of not focusing on driving and listening to an audiobook. So traveling is a really good option for you to take some time off. Alright, so that concludes this video. What do you do in your time off? I want to know. Please post in the comments below. Remember that this channel doesn't do a Patreon. Instead, we sell our digital products down below. And the best way to help with this channel is to subscribe to Mammoth Interactive's huge library of content. We produce 20 to 60 hours of fresh new content per month. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much. This channel, as well as our whole site, Mammoth Interactive, would not be possible without your support. Our goal is to get to 10,000 monthly subscribers on Mammoth Interactive. If we can do this, we can change the world. So what can you learn at Mammoth Interactive? You can learn everything from Photoshop tutorials to coding tutorials to game tutorials. We have a ton of content, and like I said, we release a ton of new, fresh content every month. It's the best way to learn the skills of the next decade. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in another video.